Hi everyone. Today's unit we'll be doing is the English legal system, and my name is Shazia Khan. We'll be looking at learning outcome 3 today to know the organisation and the work of the English courts. So in the last few sessions we looked at learning outcome 1, which we looked at the process of how a bill becomes a law. So going through all the stages for the House of Lords and for the House of Commons, such as the first stage, second stage, third stage, committee stage, and then the royal assent. So this is both for the House of Lords and the House of Commons. We also looked at what civil law was and criminal law, the difference between each one within the UK, with reference to examples. We also looked at private and public law, and then that was in learning outcome 1. Within learning outcome 2, we looked at the statutory interpretation and how that's important for judges when interpreting law within a case, and also the rules of statutory interpretation, which are things like golden rule, the literal rule, and the mischief rule, and the judge's discretion. And we looked at the importance of these rules with reference to case law and why there was a need to have these rules in place. We then went on to looking at intrinsic and extrinsic aid, things like Hansard, the use of statutes, and what the relevance of this is in regards to statutory interpretation, and why statutory interpretation is really important for judges to use these rules, because they need to make sure that the cases that are going through they come out with the best outcome, like in the case of Alan, where if the literal rule was used, he would inherit all his mother's assets, but because the golden rule was brought in regards to him murdering his mum, he did not receive all the assets. So we looked at the importance of statutory interpretation and why there's a need for it for judges, and why judges use it differently in different cases. So now we're going to go on to learning outcome 3, which is to know the organisation and work of English courts and how they work within the UK. So the learning outcomes to describe the court hierarchy for both criminal and civil law within the UK, and explain the process of appeals. So 3.1, describe the court hierarchy for both criminal and civil law. So the doctrine of precedent cannot operate effectively without a court hierarchy. So it's really important that there's a court hierarchy in place. Under the doctrine of precedent, rulings on new matters from superior courts are binding on lower courts in the hierarchy, and we'll see this as we're going through, and this shows that the law is consistently applied. And it's really important to have this hierarchy in place in regards to different courts dealing with different cases. So the hierarchy of civil law. So you've got the Supreme Court at the top, the highest court, and the final court as well. And then you have the Court of Appeal, the High Court. Within the High Court, there's 3 divisions: the Queen's Bench Division, the Family Division, and the Chancery Division. And then we have county courts and tribunals, and we'll go through each one in detail so you have an idea of what each one does. So the hierarchy of courts, the first one is the Supreme Court. So as we mentioned, this is the highest, most body of civil judiciary in the UK and of criminal judiciary in the England, Wales, Northern Ireland. It is the final court when it comes to civil cases in England and Wales. And it hears appeals on arguable points of law of general importance, and it concentrates on cases of greatest public and constitutional importance. The court itself, the Supreme Court, plays an important role in interpreting and applying to the law of the UK's territorial jurisdiction. Like the predecessor, the Appellate Committee of the House of Lords, it ensures the law is correctly interpreted and applied, and the legal limits on powers of public institutions are respected. Then the next one we've got in the hierarchy is the Court of Appeal. There are 2 divisions in the Court of Appeal. the criminal division, and the civil division. The civil division of the Court of Appeal hears the appeals from the High Court, the tribunals, and under certain circumstances from the county courts. The decisions by the Court of Appeals are binding on itself. And the Court of Appeal is the second most senior court in England and Wales. It's based at the Royal Courts of Justice in London, and cases are heard at the Court of Appeal by a Lady or Lord Justice of Appeal, or in some cases, a High Court judges. The Court of Appeal, again, like we mentioned, is the highest court within the senior courts of England and Wales tribunals. And like I mentioned, it's divided into two divisions, civil and criminal. Then we've got the High Court. There are three divisions within the High Court, and the High Court is the third highest court in the UK. It's based in London again, at the Royal Courts of Justice, but it has district registrars throughout England and Wales, where almost all High Court proceedings may be issued and heard. High Court cases are usually heard by a single judge, but certain types of hearings, such as criminal appeals and judicial review appeals, are assigned to divisional court. A jury will occasionally sit in the High Court, but only in cases involving defamation, false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, and fraud. So, like we mentioned, there's three divisions of the High Court. The Queen's Bench divisions handles all the cases related to contracts and tort in the region. The court segments that fall under this division include Commercial Court, Mercantile Court, Admiralty Court, and Technology and Construction Court, and Administrative Court. Then you've got the Family Division, and the division houses the Companies Court, Divisional Court, and Patents Court. And then you have the Chancery Division, and this division houses a court which handles all issues regarding family law, matrimony, etc. The decisions of the divisions of the High Court, though binding, can be appealed to Civil Division of the Court of Appeal. Then we've got the county courts. The jurisdiction of these courts is purely civil, and the sittings of these courts in 92 towns and cities across of England and Wales. The county courts handle almost all of the litigations and civil cases relating to civil issues. So we have the county courts, and the county court deals with all